In the year 2021, humanity is fighting a parasitic biological agent known as the Gastria virus, which is ravaging the planet. In 2031, Rentarō Satomi of the Tendō Civil Security Agency investigates a Gastria infection in the Tokyo area and discovers a masked man who declares his intention to destroy the world. Enju Aihara, a rabbit model initiator, encounters the fleeing infected victim as he transforms into a massive Gastria spider. Rentarō and Inspector Tadashima of the Tokyo police quickly arrive on the scene. Enju makes quick work of the creature after Rentarō weakens it with his black Varanium bullets. Rentarō delivers his mission report to his superior and childhood friend Kisara Tendō and receives a severe scolding for forgetting to collect the company's payment for assisting the Tokyo police. With the source of the recent Gastria infection still elusive, Rentarō visits his teacher,
Sumair Moroto, and learns that it may be using a camouflaging ability to avoid detection.
The next day after dropping Enju off at school, Rentarō reflects on humanity's war against the virus and their last hope for survival, the cursed children. The Tokyo area's top civil security agencies are summoned to the Ministry of Defense at the request of the Tokyo area's ruler, Seitenshi, who orders the agencies to exterminate a particular Gastria creature and retrieve a briefcase held within it. The masked man, Kagetane Haruko, suddenly appears in the room and declares his intention of using the case's contents, the inheritance of the 7 stars, to exterminate the Tokyo area before killing most of the room's occupants. The next day, Rentarō and Enju witness a cursed child from the outer district being arrested and shot by the police, causing Enju to lament their treatment. Rentarō retrieves the child, who is still alive, and takes her to hospital. Kagetane approaches Rentarō and asks the latter to join him. Rentarō refuses and Kagetane threatens Rentarō into visiting Enju's school. The next day, Rentarō rushes to Enju's school after a rumor of her being a cursed child is spread, forcing her to run away out of fear. While searching the outer districts, Rentarō stumbles upon a man called Matsuzaki taking care of cursed children and explains how much Enju means to him. However, Enju sorrowfully hides from Rentarō, but is secretly touched by his words. Attempting to return to school, Enju is ridiculed by her former friends. Rentarō suggests she transfer schools. At the same time, Kisara locates the source of the recent Gastria infection and immediately dispatches the pair to its location. After Enju kills the creature and exposes the case within it, she breaks into tears because of the status quo, but Rentarō promises that he will always stand by her. Rentarō tries retrieving the case, but they are ambushed by Kagetane and Kohina Haruko, a Mantis model initiator. Rentarō fights Kagetane, but finds himself severely overpowered by the latter's Varanium powers and is mortally wounded by Kohina. Sometime later, Rentarō awakens in the hospital and Seitenshi has him participate with other civil officers to stop Kagetane from using a catalyst in the case to summon a deadly Stage 5 Gastria with the potential to destroy the monolith barriers. As the mission gets underway, Rentarō and Enju stumble upon Shojin Ikuma's initiator. Keiō Senju and Rentarō pleads at her humanity due to the way she follows Shojin's orders to kill without remorse. The trio then follow Shojin's intel to the Bay Area, where the other civil officers intend to attack Kagetane. Rentarō and Enju head into the Bay Area, while Keiō stays behind to defend the area from the looming Gastria. Discovering that all of the other civil officers had been gruesomely slaughtered, Kagetane and Kohina make a stand before the pair. Rentarō charges at Kagetane and breaks through the latter's Varanium barrier with his own Varanium prosthetic limbs. Kagetane then urges Rentarō to join him in starting another Gastria war. However, Rentarō refuses and Kagetane shoots him in the abdomen. On the verge of death, Rentarō uses Sumair's experimental AGV drug to successfully regenerate his body, and then uses his Varanium-enhanced martial arts to viciously defeat Kagetane. Afterwards, a Stage 5 Gastria appears outside the Tokyo area, and Kisara has Rentarō activate the Heaven's Ladder railgun. Unfortunately, various errors force Rentarō to sever his Varanium arm to use as a projectile and manually fire the weapon, successfully destroying the Gastria. In the aftermath, Rentarō discovers Kao on the verge of death after defending the area for his sake and ends her life via coup de grace. Later, Rentarō accuses Kikunojo Tendō of being the mastermind behind Kagetane's actions. While Rentarō struggles to find a new school for Enju, Kisara informs him of a bodyguard job offered by Seitenchi. Rentarō later visits Seitenchi, who wants him to be her bodyguard in an upcoming meeting with the Osaka area's ruthless leader, Sojin Satake. However, the leader of Seitenchi's personal guard, Takuto Yasuaki, grows envious of Rentarō's close position to Seitenchi and tries to intimidate Rentarō into rejecting the job, making him accept it all the more. Rentarō stumbles upon a disheveled girl named Tina Sprout wandering around the city. Unbeknownst to Rentarō, Tina turns out to be an owl model Initiator hired assassin. Rentarō attends the meeting between Seitenchi and Sojin, and the pair learn of his tyrannical plan to turn Japan into the New World superpower after the Gastria's eventual defeat. After the meeting, Seitenchi explains to Rentarō of her ideal for the reunification of Japan and enlists him to work for her full-time. Suddenly, their vehicle is attacked by a sniper, but Rentarō and the bodyguards manage to get Seitenchi to safety. Tina relays the failure of her mission to assassinate Seitenchi to her superior and wonders about the person who thwarted her attempt. Early one morning, Tina asks to meet up with Rentarō. Afterwards, Tina's employer informs her of Seitenchi's next meeting and names Kisara as the next target in order to remove the Tendō Security Agency from the equation. Rentarō later meets up with his sponsor, Miori Shiba, who warns him about the sniper's high skill level, after which he has her research Sojin as a prime suspect in the assassination attempt. Sumier later summons Rentarō and Enju and reveals more information about the new humanity creation plan, including the likelihood that Rentarō may find himself faced with highly ranked mechanized soldiers should he start pursuing his origins. Elsewhere, Tina appears before Kisara at the Tendō headquarters and attempts to kill her. However, Rentarō arrives and stops Tina's attempt, with both shocked to see each other before Tina escapes. Afterwards, Rentarō escorts Seitenchi to another meeting and barely manages to protect her when Tina makes another assassination attempt. As Enju volunteers to go after Tina herself, Seitenchi quickly informs Rentarō about Enju's severe disadvantage due to Tina's mechanization and high 97th rank. Finally, when Rentarō tries calling Enju, Tina answers her phone. Enju's encounter with Tina leaves her severely injured and serves to dampen Rentarō's confidence of ever defeating her. Rentarō forces the gloating Takuto to set up a fake protection detail for Seitenchi to lure Tina out. Rentarō begins preparing for the upcoming face-off, while Tina's employer, Ayn Rand, gives her the fake details on Seitenchi's next meeting. Tina shows up at the trap set by Rentarō and wastes no time using her combination of remote-controlled anti-material rifles and targeting drones to attack Rentarō. However, with Miori's help, Rentarō draws Tina into close combat but gets caught off guard by a fourth drone. On the verge of defeat, Rentarō's misfired flashbang suddenly detonates and disorients Tina long enough for him to beat her. Afterwards, Rentarō decides to take responsibility for Tina until a jealous Takuto ambushes the pair. He is about to murder Tina when Seitenchi shows up and promotes Rentarō to 300th rank with level 5 security access. Now, Takuto's superior officer Rentarō shoots his trigger finger and fires him. Sometime later, Rentarō returns to the Tendō Agency's headquarters and, to his surprise, finds a recovered Enju and a released Tina who Kisara hires to work for their agency. Rentarō and Kisara decide to teach the cursed children in the outer district themselves due to the tension created by the new Gastria law. However, Seitenchi informs them of a recent Stage 4 Gastria attack on one of the area's Varanium Monoliths, and that in 6 days the creature's corrosive agent will dissolve the barrier and leave the Tokyo area vulnerable to the Gastria. Seitenchi then has Rentarō put together an adjuvant squad of civil officers for a mission to intercept the Gastria invasion. The next day, while the tension from new Gastria law continues to escalate, Rentarō invites Tina to accompany him to recruit civil officers for the mission. They also encounter a blind cursed child begging to make ends meet, and Rentarō warns her to stay out of the public for her own safety. Being the subject of envy from other civil officers, Rentarō has difficulty in recruiting and visits the Kitagari Civil Security Agency in an attempt to recruit the sibling duo. promoter Tamaki Katajiri and spider model initiator Yuzuki Katajiri. After some bargaining disagreements though, the teams decide to spar.
God damn it! What in the—
It's your fault if you get hurt! Done, Yuzuki.
With Rentarō and Tina emerging victorious and gaining the Katajiri's aid. Finally, the mission to repel the impending Gastria invasion begins that night. During a visit to Sumire's laboratory, Tina suggests leaving the Tendō agency since Rand's pursuit of her may endanger the others. However, Rentarō stops her. Afterwards, using Rentarō's increased security privileges, Sumire shows him classified information she unearthed on the Gastria War, which was thought to have been destroyed. However, data on an event at Nanahoshi village and the Gastria War outbreak remain locked until they gain higher security clearance. At the same time, the monolith's degradation finally reaches the public eye and Seitenchi calls a press conference to appease the public's unrest. Rentarō and Enju later try looking for more squad members at the adjuvant encampment and discover a suspiciously murdered promoter. Rentarō then reunites with and recruits his longtime friend, promoter Shoma Najisawa and cat model initiator Midori Fuse. Kisara later shows up and along with Tina, also join Rentarō's squad much to the latter's protest. Afterwards, Commander Nagamasa Gado rallies the camp and explains their strategy to support the Jastiff. However, Rentarō upsets Nagamasa when he questions the plan and trust of the Jastiff. Finally, Rentarō and his newly formed squad prepare themselves for the upcoming battle to defend the Tokyo area. With 3 days to go before Monolith 32's collapse, Rentarō and Kisara continue tutoring Matsuzaki's cursed children, taking them to visit the Flames of Revolution memorial site where they show their affection for Rentarō. Later that night, Rentarō and Kisara investigate the crumbling Monolith 32 and ponder on why it was specifically targeted by the Aldebaran Gastria, with Kisara deciding to conduct further research on it. The next day, the Tokyo area's population begins evacuating into underground shelters via lottery, and the remaining public's tension against the cursed children only escalates further, forcing Rentarō to rescue the blind cursed child from an angry mob. Back at the camp, Kisara and Rentarō are left in shock after learning that Monolith 32 was privately commissioned by Kazumitsu Tendō. The next day, Rentarō and Enju horrifically discover that some of the other cursed children had been killed when a bomb was deliberately dropped on the school. This sends Rentarō into a depression and he vents his frustration on Kisara by arguing against the corrupt strata of their society. Suddenly, the winds knock Monolith 32 to the ground a day early, leaving everyone with no time for grief due to the imminent Gastria invasion. Following the monolith's collapse, the civil officers look on in terror as the Jastiff are overwhelmed by the Gastria swarm heading their way. At the same time, Rentarō's adjuvant break their rank to neutralize a detachment of Gastria in the woods. Upon returning to the battlefield, Haitiko Gado maniacally informs them of a mysterious lance of light sea which devastates the remaining civil officers. In the aftermath, Kisara informs Rentarō of the mercury poisoning shown by the wounded alongside Tina's intel of a massive Stage 4 Gastria to be responsible. Afterwards, Nagamasa summons Rentarō and fills him in on the Aldebaran's regenerative abilities as well as the Pleiades Gastria responsible for the Lance of Light. Nagamasa then deems the Pleiades to be equally as threatening and forces Rentarō into a suicide mission to destroy it as punishment for breaking ranks in the earlier battle. Heading out on the mission that night, Rentarō suddenly gets ambushed by a Gastria pack. Shockingly, he finds himself saved by Kagetane and Kohina themselves. Afterwards, Kagetane once again tries and fails in recruiting Rentarō. Despite this, Kagetane points Rentarō in the Pleiades' direction the next day, and the unlikely trio sets off. After spotting the Pleiades Gastria, Rentarō and Kagetane attack and destroy it. Pleiades' demise sends the Aldebaran into a frenzied attack on the civil officer encampment which claims Nagamasa's life. This instantly promotes Rentarō to commanding status due to being the next highly ranking officer. Kagetane and Kohina later boldly stride into the encampment and find themselves accused of the previous promoter's murder, with Rentarō defending them. Rentarō later visits Midori after her fatal Gastria encounter, prompting her to run off and commit suicide to not burden the rest of the adjuvant. In pain at Midori's death, Shoma has Rentarō swear to defeat the Aldebaran, and the latter uses his new authority to assert an authoritarianist command over the remaining civil officers while Shoma pairs up with Nagamasa's initiator, Asaka Mibu. At that moment, Miori arrives at Rentaro's request and proposes a bomb capable of destroying the Aldebaran from the inside. Finally, as nightfall approaches, the civil officers aided by Shiba heavy weapons prepare to face Aldebaran at the flames of revolution. Unbeknownst to them though, Takuto attempts to sabotage the operation by disposing of the batteries for the spotlights needed to locate the Gastria. Despite the batteries failing to arrive, Rentarō begins the attack on the swarm of incoming Gastria by using the light from the thousands of paper lanterns released by Seitenshi due to the Genin festival. With help from their comrades, Rentarō and Enju manage to locate and plant the bomb inside the Aldebaran. However, the bomb fails to explode and Rentarō opts to sacrifice himself to detonate it. However, Shoma steps in instead and attacks the Aldebaran using his reverse Tendō style, thus detonating the bomb at the cost of his life. The next day, in the aftermath of the third Kanto battle, Enju relays their victory to Rentarō while reconstruction of Monolith 32 commences. Sometime later, Kisara summons Kasumitsu and hands over the evidence she obtained linking him to the corruption behind Monolith 32, in exchange for a duel to the death. Kisara mercilessly uses her special Tendō style to sever Kasumitsu's leg, forcing him to confess the plot to kill their parents 10 years ago, after which he grotesquely succumbs to his injuries. But that first attack finally killed Kasumitsu, splitting him in half. Kisara's method of revenge angers and disappoints Rentarō, but the former berates him for not having the will to see justice through, no matter how evil it may seem, leaving Rentarō to say that he may become her enemy someday. This is the end of my video, so please watching all of my anime recap series. Thanks for watching.